Good evening, everyone. I am a storyteller, and I am here to help you fall asleep with true horror stories. So before we begin, make sure you subscribe to the channel and like the video. I would love to know where you are from and what time you are watching this, so leave me a comment when you are ready. Sit back and relax. Working the night shift at the supermarket isn't as bad as people think. I've been doing it for 2 years now, same store, same routine. Most nights are slow, with only a few regulars at the end of the day. Students grabbing snacks, tired parents stopping in to pick up diapers at 11:30 p.m. I get to know the regulars, chatting with the security guard before closing. I like the predictability of it. But last fall, I learned something. Predictability can be a double-edged sword. If you do the same thing every night, someone might start to notice. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Just a middle-aged man, maybe late 40s, wearing jeans and a zip-up hoodie. He walked past my checkout around 11:05 p.m., bought a couple of frozen dinners, a 6-pack of beer. Nothing remarkable. As I packed his things, he smiled. "I always come in on your shift, right? You close at midnight, right?" I was surprised. I tried to remember his face, but nothing stood out. I said, trying to smile polite, "Oh yeah, same schedule every week." He nodded, picked up his bags, and left. I didn't think much of it, but now I wish I had. A few nights later, he came back. Same time, same counter, same long smile. He didn't say much, but he didn't need to. The way he looked at me was enough to make me nervous. "Busy?" he asked casually. I replied, continuing to scan the shelves. "Not really." "Yeah, I guess. I know your schedule." I paused. "What?" "I know you're here Monday through Friday from 4 p.m. to midnight. You always take a break around 9:30, sometimes grabbing a cup of coffee from the machine near Island 5. Then you leave through the door next to the employee parking lot." I guess I just noticed. He let out a forced laugh, but something twisted in my gut. I'd never told him that. Then I started paying more attention. He never bought much, just a few things, always close to closing time. And I noticed that, after paying, he didn't leave right away. He stood in the parking lot looking into the store. A week later, he spoke again. "You always park in the corner of the parking lot, where no one else is, smart. No one can block you that." A chill ran down my spine. "I always park there, but no one should notice." "Yeah, well," I replied, trying to keep my tone casual. That night, I changed parking spots. The next shift, I parked closer to the building. At 11:30 p.m., he showed up. I didn't say anything, but when I handed him the receipt, he smiled. "Changed parking spots?" I stopped breathing. I didn't answer, just looked at him. He picked up his bag and walked out like nothing had happened. That was the tipping point. I went straight to Dave, the security guard, and told him everything. We looked at the security cameras. He was there every night. After I paid, he didn't leave. He just stood there, in the dark, looking into the store. The next night, I was nervous as hell. But 11:30 passed, and he didn't show up. I breathed a sigh of relief until 11:55 p.m. I went to take out the trash, walked out to the trash can, and stopped. He stood in the far corner of the parking lot, not moving toward the store, just looking. This time, he didn't smile. I turned, walked quickly inside, and told Dave. He was still standing there, barely visible in the dark. Dave walked with me to the car. I drove away quickly. I thought that was the last time I would see him. But I was wrong. A week later, on my way home, I noticed a car in my rearview mirror. The headlights followed closely. I changed lanes and the car changed. I turned into an unfamiliar exit and the car turned. My heart was pounding. I pulled into a gas station, stopped right in front of a security camera. The car slowed down, then drove on, disappearing into the night. The next morning, I went to the police station. I told him everything. How he followed me, knew my schedule, my habits, how he just stood there in the dark, like he was waiting for me. The cops took notes and promised to patrol the parking lot every night at 11:30. But he never came back. Maybe he saw the cop cars and gave up. Or maybe he was still out there somewhere watching. Because there were nights when I walked out of work, standing in the quiet parking lot, and I still felt like someone was watching me. Like he never really left. Houses, I've worked in funeral homes for more than a decade. When I mention this to people, they usually have one of two reactions. Either they lean forward, curious, or they back away, as if afraid that even talking about death might unsettle them. But that's never bothered me. I knew what I was signing up for when I entered this field. My job is meticulous, quiet, and, believe it or not, predictable. At least it was before last winter. It was a Wednesday night in January, one of the coldest nights in Philadelphia. The cold seeps through your coat as soon as you step outside. I was alone in the funeral home, preparing a body for viewing in the morning. The building was small, with only two main rooms, an office and the embalming area in the back. Everything was normal until I saw him. In the soft light of the funeral room lamp, a man stood nearby. He was tall, thin, and dressed in a dark suit. He stood silently, his arms hanging loosely at his sides, his face turned toward the closed coffin, not moving. At first, I wasn't worried. I thought he might be a family member who had arrived early, hoping for a moment of privacy. That happens sometimes, I said. "Excuse me, sir. The funeral will begin tomorrow morning." Response. He didn't turn around, didn't move. Strangely still, I hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward. "Sir?" At that moment, the phone at the front desk rang. I turned around for just a moment. When I looked back, the room was completely empty. He had disappeared. There were no footsteps. There was no creaking of the wooden floor. There was no sound of anyone leaving. I hurriedly checked every corner, hallway, door, even the bathroom. No one. The funeral home was eerily quiet. The front door was still locked, the alarm system still on. I was alone. At least I thought so. I sat down at my desk, feeling restless. I tried to convince myself that maybe I was just exhausted. Maybe it was just my eyes playing tricks on me. But the image of that man kept haunting me. The way he stood there, the way he disappeared. I opened the security footage. My heart pounded as I rewinded the tape to the moment I saw him. The screen flickered, black and white images filling the screen. I stared at the footage and felt a chill run down my spine. The casket room was empty. On the tape, I saw myself walking in, glancing around as if searching for someone who wasn't there. But I saw him. Personally, I knew I had seen it. I went back to work the next night, trying to convince myself that it was all my imagination. But I didn't believe it. The claustrophobic feeling clung to me all evening. The darkness seemed. The creaking of the floorboards became more ominous. At 10:45 p.m., I went to lock the door and happened to glance out the window of the embalming room. There was movement, just a shadow moving through the dim light. I turned around, nothing, just an empty room. I sighed, telling myself that I was losing control. But when I turned back to look at the window, reflected in the glass, he was still there. Even though there was no one behind me, even though I was the only one in the building, the figure was still staring at me. I told myself that I wouldn't come back the next night. It was a lie. I needed to know. I needed to be sure. I stayed late, going through each room, looking for something I didn't understand. By 11:30 p.m., I was ready to leave. I locked the door, turned off the lights, grabbed my coat. Then I stopped. From the coffin room, there was a sound of a lock unlocking. I turned around, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew I had locked everything. With shaking hands, I turned on the security feed on my phone, and there it was. First, the coffin, the one I had closed earlier that evening, was now open. I didn't remember how I left. I just remembered sitting in my car, my hands gripping the steering wheel, breathing hard, my eyes glued to the front door of the funeral home. Nothing happened. No one stepped out of that door. Finally, I mustered up the courage to check the security footage. The timestamp was clear. 11:03 p.m. On the screen, I saw myself turn off the lights, grab my coat, and then the coffin lid began to move. Not fast, not sudden, slowly, as if someone inside was lifting it up. But nothing came out. No one was there. I never told my boss why I left. I just packed up and left without looking back. I don't know what I saw. I don't know if it was real. But sometimes when I'm alone at night, I still feel like I'm standing in that room. There's still someone behind me, and I never want to turn around to see who it is. I had been working the night shift at a small gas station in Montana for about 6 months when it happened. Most of the time, I liked the job. It was quiet, not too crowded, with just a few local truckers and the occasional lost tourist. The station was all alone in the middle of empty fields, with no houses, no stores, just the highway and endless darkness. I had never found it scary until one night in October 2019. At 1:30 a.m., I was standing behind the counter, watching a boring TV show to kill time, when I heard the sound of a truck engine slowly rolling into the parking lot. I glanced at the security camera screen. A pickup truck had stopped at the pump, but something was wrong. The headlights were off. No one got out. I waited, thinking maybe the driver was just taking a break or checking his phone. But 5 minutes passed, then 10. The man in the car didn't move, just stared straight ahead. Something made the back of my neck cold. I decided to step outside. The air was cold. Every small sound suddenly became clear in the silence. I called, "Do you need any help?" No response. The man remained still, his face hidden in the darkness. Then I realized something more frightening. At the edge of the gas station light, near the trash can, something moved. 2 short figures hunched over. I squinted, trying to see better. They were looking at me. One of them suddenly rushed toward the store. Without thinking, I turned and ran, slamming the door and locking it. Just a second later, there was a loud bang on the glass. Outside, 2 men stood up straight. One was tall, wearing a thick coat, smiling strangely as if this was just a joke. The other guy turned back to the truck. I realized they had never intended to buy gas. The driver sat still, not moving, as if waiting for something. One of the guys outside tapped on the window, staring at me without saying a word. Then, as if he had lost interest, he turned away and climbed into the truck. The engine roared and the truck rolled slowly out of the parking lot, disappearing into the night. I stood there in the store, not calling the police. I didn't even know what to say. A group of strange men standing outside my store in the middle of the night. Scary. I told myself maybe they were just drunk. Maybe they were just joking. But then the next night at exactly 1:30 a.m., the truck returned. Same spot, same headlights, same no one came out. This time I didn't go out. I watched the security screen, my hand on my phone. Then the store phone rang. As I jumped, I looked at the screen. The caller ID was unknown. It I picked up. There was a long pause, then a man's voice, slow and steady. "Why didn't you come out this time?" where the line suddenly went dead. I froze. I looked back at the security screen. The truck was gone. No taillights, no engine sounds. The next morning, I called my boss, quitting immediately without giving any reason. I never saw the truck again, but I knew one thing for sure. That first night, I wasn't allowed to see them. They wanted me out, far enough away, and if I did, the truck wouldn't leave alone.